Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar for today, Sharpening Your Competitive Edge in B2B Marketing with XR and Virtual Showrooms. If anyone has a question during today's presentation, we'll be doing a quick Q&A at the end. You can look for a box with a question mark in it. We'll open a field very similar to the chat, and you can type in your question and submit it for later review. If anyone has any chats or any issues, please enter it in the chat and we will help you out when we can. But for now, I'm going to pass off to our president of Quake Marketing, Jason Ruby.
Thanks very much, Clayton. Appreciate it. Clayton is going to be managing everything today, and we will take questions at the end. But if you do have questions during the presentation at a specific time about a specific topic, feel free to enter it, and Clayton will jump in and share it with me. In the meantime, we can get started. So we're really excited about today's webinar. XR and virtual showrooms are a topic that's near and dear to my heart for a bunch of different reasons, but primarily, in the B2B marketing world, a lot of times B2B companies are on the trailing end of marketing technology, like websites and social media, that kind of thing. But, XR and virtual showrooms is a real chance for B2B companies not only to adopt early and take advantage of this kind of new paradigm shift that's happening, but it also creates some real differentiation for you in your company. And so there's real opportunity to take advantage of that. So I'm excited to get started. So here we go. So what we're going to cover today is what is XR. So if you really don't know anything about this whole XR thing, then we'll go over that as well. Talk about the advantages and disadvantages and kind of where it's going. We'll talk about how you can create a competitive advantage with this, with XR and virtual showrooms for your company, how it's kind of being adopted and kind of where it's going. Then we're going to do a demonstration of a few virtual showrooms that we've created for different clients of ours. And then by the end, we'll also talk about how you can get started to create your own virtual tool or showroom for your business. And like Clayton said, we'll take some questions at the end as well. Before we do, I spent just a few short minutes talking about Quake. If you haven't had a chance to work with us before, we are a full-service B2B marketing agency, and what's different about us is that we have a core team that has kind of grown up in industrial manufacturing technology marketing. So we get how B2B works, and we can understand it. And combined, we have well over 100 years of experience in B2B marketing. And like I said, our core team is really built around kind of supporting our clients and the unique needs of B2B businesses. As a company, our philosophy, like I said, we have the experience of a B2B marketing team, and this really is because a lot of us used to be on the client side, and we would work with a lot of agencies, and nobody wanted to understand our products, our company, our industry. And from our perspective, you can't do good marketing if you don't understand what you're marketing. So this company was really built around the idea of let's really partner with our clients and take the experience that we have and put that to use. As I said in the introduction, we like to differentiate through technology. So, like I said, a lot of B2B companies are slow to adopt new technologies for all kinds of different things, including marketing. And we like to help kind of bring that forward and help you lead and help you differentiate yourself with those technologies, like XR and virtual showrooms. And like I said, we're about long-term partnership. We like to start with something small, build trust, understand your business, and grow with you over time. That's how we like to do things. So we're not in it for a quick project and get out. We really want to get in there and get into the weeds with everything you do and help you and add as much value as we can. As I said, we're a full-service agency, so I won't go through all of this list, but if it comes to marketing or anything related to it, we can do it. And I said, we're a global team, and we've done all kinds of crazy projects all over the world, massive ones, small ones in different languages. But like I said, if we haven't had a chance to work with you before, we're happy to start small and grow with you as a company. So that said, I promise that's all the selling of Quake I'm going to do in this presentation. I really want to get into what is XR. Before we do, I just want to get a bit of sense of what everybody understands about XR. So we're going to do our first poll question. So Clayton, let's do it.
All right, our first poll is up. You can click to select an answer. But have you had any experience with AR, VR, or virtual showrooms in your business? This is just to get a nice baseline of kind of where everyone lives as far as using the technology or how familiar you are with the technology currently. Oh, I see one person's actively using XR today.
It's exciting.
Looks like most people are unfamiliar with XR, but we do have some people who are using it or have been talking about it.
Okay, cool. Well, it's a good mix. I'll pretend like most people don't know anything about it, and we can take it from there. So what is XR? So XR is an umbrella term. So it really covers all things virtual for now. So augmented reality, most of you I'm sure have heard of. So that's where you can use your phone and you can take a digital item and drop it into the real world and interact with it in some way. Virtual reality, I'm sure you've also heard of this. It's a very immersive experience. It's where you wear a headset and everything around you in 360 degrees is that virtual experience. And a less popular term is mixed reality, and that's kind of an element where you're mixing the real world with a digital element in a way that it interacts with the space. So, again, I'm going to go through a lot of different terms today, but we'll really lean on XR as kind of the umbrella term for everything. But as you can see, there's a lot more elements to that. So XR, with all those different technologies, is a new way of integrating digital and virtual elements into a more immersive experience. And our focus is really going to be around marketing, but there's a ton of opportunity for it in education and training and communications and eventually everything. And I say that because, before websites took off, nobody really expected websites to be what they are today. Same with social media. And I think this is the next kind of paradigm in, experiences, and, eventually it will find its way into everything that we do. But for now, we're going to just focus on B2B marketing. So I'll go through this quickly, but we talked about XR as an umbrella term to mean, XR, VR, AR, and mixed reality. And a lot of corporations have been positioning themselves to kind of latch on to certain terms and kind of lean into one or another. So these are the core ones, but there's a whole other set of terminology. So spatial computing, Apple's really been pushing that one. You've heard the term digital twins. We'll talk about that in a minute. Virtual showrooms, something we're going to talk about today. Immersive technologies, immersive experiences. Metaverse was bouncing around for a couple of years, but it's largely dead now. But, these companies have really been focusing on these terms. And then there's assisted reality, immersive collaboration, holoportation, v-commerce, metahumans, digital. So all these big global corporations are picking their marketing term to refer to XR or related technologies. And so it's kind of creating a bit of confusion, as is the technology, which we'll talk about in a minute. So all this to say is we're going to stick with XR and virtual showrooms for now. And over time, it will all sort itself out. But at the end of the day, Apple is using spatial computing, and Microsoft is also using it for some of their technologies. So we all know what Apple wants, Apple gets. So we can expect over the next couple of years, spatial computing will be the term that everybody uses for this type of thing. But again, it's an umbrella term. So it's going to cover all the software, XR, everything we just talked about, content, 3D interfaces. It's also going to include all the hardware, like phones and headsets, the sensors and cameras that are going to continue to make all of these technologies and related things more immersive and more of a better experience as time goes on. So just to be clear what XR is and what it's not. So it's everything we talked about. It's 3D product environments, it's virtual showrooms, it's AR for contextual visualization. So if you haven't used it at all before, you've probably seen the IKEA app where you have a picture of your room and you can drop in a sofa or a chair and you can see exactly what it's going to look like. That contextual visualization is a big part of how this technology is being used in B2C marketing today. But it is not headsets. It's not just for gaming. It's not a marketing gimmick. And part of the issue is that, everybody's heard of the Google Glass that was a failed kind of technology experiment from Google, 5-10 years ago. The Oculus is about 15 years old. And we've all seen these different weird kind of headsets or headgear that are tied into computers somehow. And it's confusing because that's what you lean into when you think about these things. And again, gives you a false impression of what the core kind of technology is. So I love, forward, I'm very tech forward. I like thinking about these new things. But when I see pictures of multiple people wearing headsets, I think back to the photo on the left. And if you're old enough, you may remember this, but 3D television was the thing in the early 2000s. And it largely failed. And why did it fail? Because nobody wants to wear 3D glasses when they're at home watching TV. It's inconvenient. If you're laying on the couch or on a pillow and you're already wearing glasses, you have to get special, glasses to wear over top your other glasses to watch your 3D TV. There's no content. When Avatar came out, they released it on DVD in a 3D TV format, but there just wasn't enough content to keep people going. And it's also expensive, and every set of glasses was $100. So, it was around for 5 or 7 years and it failed. When Apple released the Vision Pro headset, which is their VR experience, it hasn't done well. And why? People are saying it's too heavy. It puts pressure on my face. It's inconvenient. Apple was really pushing people to wear it on airplanes and on trains and on buses. Nobody wants to do that. It also needs a big battery so you have to stuff it in your pocket when you're walking around with it. There's no content for it. There's content. There's no the killer app where it was like, I have to have that. And it's an expensive entry point. So from the headset perspective, a lot of these reasons are why that has not taken off. And as much as Apple wanted to come up with a solution to replace all that, it's just not there yet. It will probably get there at some point, but it's not there yet. And now when the Apple Vision Pro came out, we had one as a team, and we've given a demo to a lot of different companies, and it's really cool. Like this dinosaur experience, you can walk right up to that window, stick your head in, and look around that world. And the dinosaur interacts with you. It will follow you, it will look around as you move around. If you ever watched the Apple immersive video on the headset, it's incredible. Like you feel like you're on top of the mountain. It's wild. But in the demonstrations that we've done with people, everyone's like, wow, that's amazing. But they also say, well, no one has said that I've got to get one. And no one has said I can think of use it for my business. So when you think about that from that perspective, we have non-immersive experiences where you're just at your computer. We have the fully immersive experience with the headset. So where is the world right now? And I think we're about here. I think people are starting to adopt to it. Sure, the gamers are fully into the fully immersive experience, and there's some training uses for it from a corporate perspective. But the global adoption is not there yet. But it doesn't mean that virtual elements and virtual showrooms and that kind of thing are going away. It's just that the full adoption to fully immersive is taking its time. So let's talk about what semi-immersive looks like when it comes to AR. So we talked about augmented reality. So again, You can use it in museums. You can use it on your phone. You can still use it in B2B purposes, but and it's getting cheaper and less expensive to create it. It's getting easier to implement and deploy. Digital twins, we talked about this. So this is, if you haven't heard of it, digital twins it's when a company that's, say they're going to build a factory. So BMW has a great example of this. They were going to build a new factory. They built a digital twin, a fully immersive digital twin of the factory, and they ran parts. They went through all the workflows and they worked through all the kinks of the factory before they even poured concrete. And it added 6 or 12 months to the process, but it saved them millions of dollars in years of, retrofits and changes and improvements to the process down the road. So, it's one way that, immersive virtual digital technologies are helping in B2B companies. It's already being used in product configuration. So you've no doubt seen Toyota or car sites where you can design and optimize your car in a digital way, in a virtual way before you even sit in it. We talked about some marketing uses of it, but you can also do virtual presentations and product reviews. There's all kinds of different things. There, interactive presentations. You can incorporate digital and virtual tools into it as well. But as I said earlier, right now, the biggest single use of this technology from a B2B perspective is training. So for a couple of years now, larger enterprise companies have been using this. And as of mid-2025, 7% of all organizations are using XR for some sort of training program. And 22% of all enterprise organizations are using XR for training programs. And 75% of all Fortune 500 organizations are using XR or some element of it for training. So what does this tell us is that it's gaining adoption, but scale and resources are obviously one of the biggest factors for using it. So why is it working? Well, studies have shown that when people are interacting with something versus just passively watching it, they can complete the training up to 4 times faster than just being in a classroom because they're emotionally connected to the content. If you're physically touching something or interacting with it, you're more attached to it and create a bond with completing something from yourself as an experience. It's a lot less costly than classroom training, A, for space, but B, a lot of times you need, other versions of the product that you're creating to let people train on, or there's potential safety issues as well. So you can see here some other stats from different companies about how they're using it and how it's improved their training performance. And like I said, from a safety perspective, for manufacturing companies have reported up to 43% reduction in workplace injuries. So there's a lot of upside to these types of things, and that's going to lead us into our next discussion about how you can use this in your company to help create a competitive advantage. But before we get into that, I'm going to hand over to Clayton for another poll question.
All right, we're looking at our second poll. What is the primary way that new prospects engage with your brand today? This can be through websites, videos, trade shows and demos, sales presentations, or maybe all of the above. Maybe you're doing really well with marketing. And we've got some answers coming in. Looks like so far a lot of sales presentations and collateral. All right, we'll give this just a few more seconds. All right, we're closing the poll. So yeah, it looks like a lot of sales presentations, collateral, getting people interested. There is somebody using all of the above, so they're really kind of hitting all the marks.
Yeah, interesting. And this is kind of, I guess, what I would have expected, to be honest. And I think it does show that there is definitely an opportunity to do something different. And I think that fits in perfectly with what we're going to talk about next. How is the B2B marketing landscape changing? Well, I mean, there is a certain amount of information overload, right? Every business is online. Every business has to have social media. Content's everywhere, because there's so many different channels, it's becoming more and more expensive to advertise and to advertise effectively. But it all boils down to the fact that with all of these different channels and all these different things, it's harder and harder to stand out. So part of where the focus has to go is differentiation and focus. And again, it's becoming maybe less about doing all the things, but doing less things, but doing them in a more focused, customized way, but also really emphasizing how you're different. And that's a basic marketing principle. But if we tie it back into the whole XR piece, that's really how we can say, okay, let's find a way to use this tool to really stand out in the crowd. So how can we do that? So there's a stat that 73% of users have more trust and see value in the products that have AR transparency. So if you see a photo or a video online of a car or a piece of tech manufacturing equipment or something like that, that's one thing. But when you can interact with it, let's say spin it around or look under the hood or interact with it in some way, that creates trust because it's not two-dimensional. You're really being able to interact and see it in all the different dimensions. So so far these things have proven that it increases engagement, whether it's on your phone or on a website, improved conversions. It improves the sales cycle because it reduces the number of questions people have. And it also helps improve the win rate or close sales. From a qualitative perspective, it's important to think if this is not a novelty thing, it can be connected to a business outcome. Like, what is your business goal and how can we create a virtual tool to solve that problem? Let's not just create a virtual experience for the sake of doing it. It's slow to adopt for a lot of companies, and there's an opportunity now to do that so you can stand out and be different immediately. It improves the understanding of complex products or systems for potential buyers, provides deeper engagement, and which is a trend, and not just in this place, but everywhere in the world. Self-guided discovery and customization are becoming more and more the story when it comes to how companies are communicating with people. So that unique experience is really going to be part of what drives the future of marketing and everything else for that matter. So how can you use XR in each step of your sales funnel as a company? So from an awareness perspective, again, you can use it, for engagement at trade shows. You can use it for product demonstrations. But it's the interactive exploration. And again, it's not about wearing a headset. You can do it on a touch screen. You can do it on your phone. You can do it with something like a HoloLens where it's, you can, like the mixed reality piece. So, there's ways to engage at each level. From a research perspective, again, contextual understanding is important because, again, if you can take a piece of equipment and drop it into a space or see how it interacts with other elements in your facility, that demonstrates a lot of value. Again, it helps engage in participation. People can visualize different configurations, like we talked about with the car sites, but you can do that in the kind of digital twin aspect as well. And it helps you demonstrate complete solutions. Again, a lot of bigger companies and manufacturing companies are trying to sell complete solutions, not just single products. So when you can take a virtual element or product and plug it into a bigger space, it helps tell that story in a much more meaningful way. From a purchasing perspective, again, it's not just about product configuration, but if you have to sell it to other stakeholders inside the organization, they can connect and understand it better when it's in a virtual format and it's interactive. And from a post-sales perspective, you can do maintenance, you can do training. Again, all in a less expensive, more interactive and measurable way. I wasn't going to try and talk about AI in this presentation because I feel like it's a little over talked about right now, but I do want to say that AI will only help with XR adoption, and you can kind of read the chart quickly, but the point is that AI is an accelerant, and it's part of the process, but it doesn't stand on its own, not yet. So, when you think about how to build and implement, execute XR, AIs can definitely be part of that as well. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about why this is coming, whether you like it or not, and adoption trends, so you can see how this can fit into the bigger picture of your marketing strategy. But we're going to do one more poll, and I'll hand it back over to Clayton.
The poll should be up on your screen now, so please click to give an answer. But the poll is, what is your company's biggest challenge in standing out in a crowded B2B market? We've got explaining complex ideas clearly, differentiating from similar competitors, keeping customers engaged through long sales cycles, inconsistent sales messaging, and limited marketing resources. These are all very popular reasons why there is some pain points in standing out in a crowded market. We've got a couple answers coming in, so we'll give it a few more seconds.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. A lot of the companies we work, that's their biggest challenge. They have a complex solution or, unique proprietary technology, and they don't know how to explain it in a way that makes sense to, audiences. Like, it's one thing to sell it to, a factory manager or a product manager, but someone in accounting or, higher up the corporate chain might not understand the technology. So finding a way to communicate with them is really important. Okay, so let's get into adoption. So the market is growing. And I like to think of it in terms of, the accelerated adoption process. So when we think about websites, which again, we talked about like the kind of different paradigms of marketing or just, online interaction. The first website ever was created in 1991. And, it was around 2000, the late 90s, early 2000, when websites really started to kind of adopt. But it took really 10 to 11 years from that point until it really kind of had hit a critical mass when everybody's like, if you're in business, you have to have a website. And that's still holds true today. Social media, exact same thing. It was about 6 or 7 years from early to mass adoption of social media. And again, B2B was on the kind of slow end of both of these. So when we look at where XR is going, these are just predictions, of course, but you can see the adoption rate of the green line at the top. So, where do we think that, how long is it going to be before this really kind of hits a critical mass? If you look at websites and social media, the adoption phase is shortening. So, what is going to be the thing that really kind of tips that off? So we don't know the answer, but again, I think evidence shows that the sooner that we can get into it, the better, because like I said, it's here to stay. As you saw on that other slide, all these massive corporations are investing in it in one way or another. And again, it will eventually be something that you need to have in some way or another. So the question becomes, how quickly do you adopt it for your company? So again, the teal dot on the right side, that's largely when a lot of B2B companies would adopt kind of a website or social media or that kind of thing. The red dot is kind of where the market is today. So that gap is kind of, call it an opportunity for you as a company to kind of get in and help differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And I know I'm going through this very quickly, and if anybody out there that's watching would like more information and wants to go through this in more detail, just reach out. Happy to go through it. I could spend an hour just talking about this stuff. So if we think about what's driving XR growth, as of 2026, right? Websites help establish credibility, ensure that you're like a real company, you're present. Social media helps with getting attention and reaching out to people. But XR and virtual tools are going to help improve understanding and increase buying confidence for all the things that we talked about on the earlier slides. And if you overlap that with the audience, right? Like I said, everybody's got a website and social media at this point. That's pretty standard. But creating differentiation and experimenting with different things in marketing really starts leaning towards that XR and virtual space, because the other two have really been kind of done to death in a way. So if you look at that from another perspective, how much effort is required to stand out in each of those things? You're really looking at XR and virtual as a real opportunity to create a unique virtual environment for your company and for your customers to experience and really identify with what your brand is all about. So if you look back at, again, the last 20 years or so, 25 years, every major marketing channel has started as a risk, but has ended in a requirement. I really feel like that's where we're at today. So if you are thinking about getting into XR, into that space, the biggest gain for you as a company and the biggest opportunity for you as a company will happen before the adoption of XR becomes mandatory and ubiquitous in marketing. Okay, so I don't want to, I want to get to the good stuff. So we're going to do a virtual showroom demonstration now. So these are some examples of, again, ones that we've done as a company. So the first one I'm going to show is, this is a Canadian a company called Move Air, and they do air conditioning and HVAC kind of products. And this is a simple way to use virtual elements in your website. So this is something you can go on their website, you can drag and spin it around. You can look at the whole unit from every direction. There's an opportunity, you can drop the measurements on the screen with the virtual toolbar. You can switch the different models. And what's cool about it is that it's you don't need to download anything. There's no plugins. You don't have to sign in. It's just an element that sits on their website 24/7. And it just helps tell the story. So they still have PDFs, they still have videos, they still have text, but having this tool that you can move around does help if you're looking to try different models or you want to have more information. There's also, if you check this out on your phone, you can also do the drop it into your space so you can see how it fits and how it looks outside in your backyard or whatever the case may be. Next, Rowan is a company that work with, and they do natural gas measurement devices. And when they go to trade shows, all of these devices weigh 50 or 100 pounds. They're made of steel. It's hard to get across the border. And it's not an effective way to demonstrate. So what we did is we created this unique virtual space for them. Again, it sits on the website 24/7. And you can pick any of these devices. You can look at them in a photorealistic way. They've got hotspots if you want to read more information. You can download PDFs. You can look at them in 360 degrees. And again, this is on their website. There's no plugins required. It just works. And that's the biggest part of why we've been such big fans of this technology, because it does create differentiation, but it also just works. It's just easy to use. Another one is a company called Team Power Solutions, and they do electrical cabinets. And again, they don't want to drag this to every single trade show they go to or every time they go see a customer. So we created this virtual demonstration for them, where again, you can look at the box in a bunch of different angles, which is fine, but you can also look inside. And again, the detail is very realistic. And again, the hotspots and all these elements help tell the story about what it is, how it works. Here's the PDF if you need more information or if you want technical specs. So again, it's all about ease of use and doing something that people haven't seen before. And as you've seen with the first three that we've shown you, there's you can have it in whatever environment that you want or no environment. It's all customizable and all just works. IPEX is a company that we've been working with for a year or two, and this is a virtual showroom they created. And this is an example of how it doesn't have to be limited to a room. So, for example, this is the vortex flow insert, which is a piping technology. And this is their virtual showroom to show how this technology works in sewers and manages with water flow. So the different buttons demonstrate the different things from different angles. And it gives users a real sense of how it works. And again, it's only limited by your imagination. It doesn't have to be in a square room, or it doesn't have to be in a blank white space. You can really find a way to help tell your story in context to the product that you're selling. MOG is, from the companies that we work with, they've probably taken it the furthest. And they've started building a virtual factory, essentially. So they've got a reception area. And just for the record, I've turned the volume down on all these because they all have sound and people talking. And I didn't want to try to talk over them. So, but each of these rooms have a different, each of them is essentially a showroom for a different piece of technology. And what's important for them is that these pieces they weigh a massive amount. They're 15, 20 feet wide, 12, 15 feet high. So to take this to a trade show is extraordinarily expensive. And take all three of these rooms to a trade show is perhaps prohibitively expensive. So what we've done is created these showrooms where they can demonstrate and do the same 3D kind of walk around that you would on a booth, but you can put it onto a touch screen instead of just needing to spend all the money and logistics and people to set it up, run it, and transport it back and forth. So same thing. It's 360-degree view. You can, again, interact with anything. You can watch videos. You can open up inside and see what's going on. And all of these things help tell the story. And so they were so happy with their first room that they've added, again, this reception area and 3 other rooms. We're working on another one now. So it becomes a landing place for, their whole company and their whole product line without needing to transport anything and making it available to people 24/7. And last but not least, we've started playing around with our own offices. So we started to create a Quake virtual office. And again, this is about helping showcase your capabilities and your services as a company. Again, we created the virtual office, and I don't have the volume on it right now, but I'm doing introduction. But what's great about this is that this is a virtual space, and that's video. And all we've done is linked a video file through XML so that we don't even need to change out anything about the showroom. If we want to make a change with the video, it's just inserting a new file or a new link for the XML file. So this makes it super easy to update and manage, as well as to use. So, again, we can walk around the virtual office. We can watch a demonstration demo reel for animations. If you know anything about the team, we're big into music here. So we have a virtual jukebox where you can pick songs from SoundCloud and play them. But again, the point is that it's all very interactive, engaging, and again, creates some differentiation, creates a unique experience. As I said, the reason from a case study perspective, the reason the MOG wanted to do this was because they wanted to demonstrate all the stuff at a trade show, but the cost to take all of this would have been crazy expensive. So not only did we create that for them, but when you look at it from an ROI perspective, the virtual showrooms that we create is the same technology and software that we use for all the other platforms. So we use that virtual showroom to create an augmented reality app that they could use on their smartphones for their sales team. So they can take those same machines and drop it in life size into a factory floor, or make it small and fit on a tabletop. And it's got the same hotspots and all that functionality. You've seen the virtual showrooms that goes on computer, but the same thing. We took all those details and all those elements and put onto a touch screen that can be easily run at a trade show off a standard computer. And then because it's probably be when, not if, but if and when something like the Apple Vision Pro or VR headsets or whatever really get to the point where everybody's using them, it's the same platform. And again, we've taken those same showrooms and put it into the headset environment so that you can interact with it the exact same way, except it's 360 degrees around you, not just 360 degrees around the machine. So as we wrap up, you might be thinking about how do we get started? How do I maybe think about doing a virtual showroom and what's involved? So before we do that, we're going to do our final poll question. So I'm going to hand it over back to Clayton one more time.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, last poll of the day. So what would be the biggest driver for your company to invest in XR in the next 12 months? We've got increase customer engagement, create competitive differentiation, reduce marketing expenses, demonstrate industry leadership, and reduce the length of the sales cycle. All very valuable reasons. Okay, so far, demonstrate industry leadership is off to an early lead, but we do have a range of answers, and that looks like all of them. So I'm going to hit end, and we'll all see the results.
Yeah, I mean, all of those make sense. When I think about it in the bigger context of marketing strategy, I do feel like, demonstrating industry leadership is a great way to use the tool, because again, if nobody else is doing it, you show that you're not just a leader in your business, but in how to showcase what you can do as a business. And there's some brand value in doing that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to talk for a few quick minutes about how to get started and potential limitations. So there are some limitations to what this can do. If it's going on a website and you want to keep it so that it's easy to access, quick to download, and a super easy experience for your user, we do have to think about file size. So a lot of the effort that we put into the MOG showroom that you can see on screen here, there's a lot of components, a lot of elements, and all those add up to very big file sizes, but we do put a lot of time into making those as efficient as possible so that when you go and you load it up, it only takes a few seconds. That's really important. But because we have 3 different rooms and the reception, it's part of the process to kind of lazy load some of those things. But we haven't really come up into a situation yet where we've been limited. So we can get creative with how we execute it, but we still, when we're talking to people about doing a showroom, they say, well, what is it you want to do? Let's start with your wish list and we'll work backwards. But more often than not, we can make it work as is because, it's a very flexible platform. As far as scope for timelines, it doesn't take forever to build these. the Romette one that we talked about, that was a rush job, and we did it less than 3 weeks, or less than 4 weeks from idea to execution. The MOG one's a little more elaborate, and have taken 6 to 10 weeks for each room. But it can go faster, it can go longer, but the point is it's a very manageable time frame, and with a little foresight and some planning, it can be easily executed. And then from a production step perspective, what's involved? Well, like I said, you're limited only by your imagination, and to some extent your budget as well, obviously, but you can make it an application. You can just put it on your website. You can put it as a device. You can put it as a touchscreen at a trade show. So it's really about, what's your vision? We can help you create a storyboard. Like I said, there is an audio element that goes with all of these things. So you want to have a script and a voice that speaks to some of the items. And you want to connect existing collateral as well, like PDFs and videos that also help tell the story. And there's a development and testing phase. And then if it's going on your website, there's some integration with IT and security, but a lot of companies that we work with just ask us to host it because of the headaches involved with that. But the point is that it's not a long process, and it's not an overwhelming process either. It's a lot easier to create and execute now than maybe it was 5 years ago. And it's just going to keep getting better. So if you think about kind of how you might want to use it, like I said, if you're thinking about something web-based, like I showed you with the air conditioning unit, it can be very simple, and that's a very inexpensive way to get started. If you want to do something with AR, that's a very mobile-ready application, and it's fairly easy to execute. And then if you want to do something as simple as like a touch screen on a trade show, it'll increase visitor engagement right away. And you can also collect all that data from how people are using it, what buttons are they clicking on, what aspects and features of the technology are they really interested in. So it really sets itself up as a great platform for that next level of marketing, engagement, and immersive experiences. So before we do some questions, if you are thinking about doing it, now's the time, because like I said, every indication is that this is going to become easier and easier to execute and become more and more standardized as part of communications in general. And you can use it in all aspects of business. Again, it doesn't have to just be marketing. Training and education is a big thing, but there's all kinds of different ways you can use it in all parts of your business. And it is really important to think about your imagination, because we can do any kind of environment and we can do any kind of interaction with this stuff that you want. With B2B, we tend to be a little more focused on the practical uses, but again, creativity really lends itself to this type of technology. But if you have an idea, we can help you make it happen. That's literally what we're here for. So that's all I had for the presentation. We still got a few minutes, so I guess I would open up to see if there's any questions. So I'll maybe hand it back over to Clayton.
All right, we did have one question come on, which was during our demo segments, specifically looking at the Romette meters. But I feel like this question kind of goes for anything, which was, how are the gas meters and the electrical panel created? So sort of what software program do we use? What's the process to go from a physical product to our virtual product?
Right. So the software that we use is Unity, and it's actually like a game development software. But you have to be a Unity developer to be able to kind of do that. So like I said before in the earlier thing, Unity is the platform for all those things. So AR, virtual showrooms, VR, touchscreens. And it's really just, if that's something you want to look into, if you have whether it's natural gas device or a piece of manufacturing equipment, you give us the model and we can apply all the same colors and materials and branding that you would, in the real world. And then we can just use Unity with that to help develop that experience and add all the elements in to help really make it immersive and engaging. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. So speaking of, let's say someone had a product and they wanted to get it into Unity, they wanted to talk to Quake, and maybe they have a trade show, like possibly NPE coming up. What is the timeline like to create that virtual showroom? Like, again, going to a trade show, you want to do a really great demo for everybody, but you can't bring it with you because it's too big or it's a whole room. And so what's that timeline look like from first conversation until I can show this to somebody?
Yeah, so I mean, it's variable, like I said, based on the scale. If it's a small device or something that has very few elements to it, that's going to go a lot faster than if it's a big piece of manufacturing equipment. But like I said in the earlier slides, it can be a couple of weeks if it's a rush, and also, I mean, we can do anything if it's a rush, if we put our hearts and minds to it. So I would say minimum you want to have at least 2 to 3 weeks, but I'd say 4 to 6 weeks gives you the best amount of time to also make sure it tests and works efficiently, because when it comes to software, there's always bugs. Doesn't matter what platform you're using. So
yeah,
4 to 6 weeks would be probably a standard.
All right. And then what kind of upkeep is not for the Quake team or the people that put it together, but more for the internal team for a company that has a product and they're hosting it on their website or anyway? What is the upkeep like? Is there any kind of general maintenance that needs to be done or support from the team?
That's a good question. So if like I said, a lot of these we host them because a lot of our clients we don't want to get our IT team involved. So we manage any kind of security software updates kind of in the background. If the client wants to host on their website, that's also very easy to do. It's the only maintenance that's required if they're not making changes to the content is really just around their own web security, the software updates, that kind of thing that they would have to do anyways. So from a showroom perspective, the file that we give them, as long as their website is up and running, the file will just work. And if there's no changes, it will just go on its own.
Oh, that's great. So the last question we've got is about ROI. So how do we track or measure ROI for a virtual showroom compared to traditional tools like trade shows, video walkthroughs, or even physical demos?
So it's a great question. When I said you're kind of limited by your imagination to the interface, you're kind of limited by your imagination with that as well. So we can heat map, where people are clicking or touching on the screen. We can collect data about how long someone's using the experience for. So we can track a lot of the same analytics you would if you're on a website. And if there's specific hotspots or interactions inside of that virtual experience that companies are interested in tracking, we can just build that into the storyboard and the scope as we would anything else. So yeah, the answer is it's really limited by what it is you want to get out of it, for sure.
All right, that's fantastic. Okay, so that's our time. So thank you so much for the presentation, Jason. And if anyone wanted to get in touch with you and your team to discuss integrating XR or virtual showroom, how could they do that?
Message me through LinkedIn, email me at jason@quakemg.com. But all that contact information is on our website as well. So we'd be happy to hear from anybody. And if you want the 2-hour version of this, happy to do it.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Clayton.